Thank you for joining us today on Devotions with Brother Aaron. So glad to be able to be a part of your day. Hope you get a blessing out of the devotion today. I've entitled it, Jingle Bells, Marbles, and Boudreaux. Proverbs 17:22 says, A merry heart doeth good like a medicine, but a broken spirit drieth the bones. The phone rang at approximately 3:30 a.m., awakening Mary Ann and me. She listened intently to my conversation. She heard me say things like, I'm so sorry. Well, sure I would. Graveside services on Friday? Jingle bells? Well, okay. When I hung the phone up and lay back down in the bed, Mary Ann asked me, what was that all about? I told her that it was my Aunt Kate. She was calling to inform me that my Uncle Archie had just died. She told me that she wanted him to have a graveside service on Friday. My uncle had told her that he wanted my brother Billy to preach his service, and he wanted me to sing at his service. Mary Ann asked, and what song is that? I looked at her very strangely and said, you ain't gonna believe this, Jingle Bells. Now, both of us thought this was very strange, especially it was the middle of summer, but I didn't want to make a scene, so I rehearsed Jingle Bells, his favorite song, and was ready to sing it on Friday. We were all gathered at the graveside, and everything was very solemn and dignified, as most funerals are. Billy finished his sermon, and I waited for the nod from the funeral director, and then cut loose with Dashing Through the Snow in a one-horse open sleigh. By the time I sang the third verse, pandemonium had broken loose at the graveside. My sister, brothers, and cousins were all falling over headstones laughing at me. Undaunted, I finished my Uncle Archie's favorite song. When the funeral was over, my aunt made her way to me, took me by the hand, and said, I'm so sorry. The other night when I spoke with you, I was so grief-stricken that I didn't realize what I was saying. His favorite song wasn't Jingle Bells. It's When They Ring Those Golden Bells. Oh, hey, stuff happens to me that doesn't happen to other preachers. Another pastor friend of mine asked me a question the other day. He said, Aaron, do you know how to tell when a man is qualified to be a preacher? I said, nope, but I'm sure you're about to tell me. He said, you tell him to put a bunch of marbles in his mouth. Then when he learns how to speak with all the marbles in his mouth, you tell him to spit one out. And after he has learned to speak correctly then, you tell him to spit another one out. You keep repeating this process until there are no marbles left in his mouth. Then, when he has lost all his marbles, he is qualified to be a preacher. Boudreaux was a Cajun from Louisiana who loved to fish. One day, Boudreaux was fishing and ran out of bait. Dejected, he headed for the shore. Along the way, he noticed a snake swimming beside his boat with a frog in its mouth. He thought to himself, if I catch that snake, I can take that frog and use him for bait. So Boudreaux reached down, grabbed the snake by the head, lifted him out of the water. This angered the snake, so he coiled tightly around Boudreaux's arm. Holding tightly to the snake's head, Boudreaux was able to get the frog out of his mouth, but didn't have a clue as to what to do with the angry snake that was wrapped tightly around his arm. He couldn't just let him go because he would bite him, and he couldn't shake him loose because he was wrapped so tightly around his arm. Suddenly, Boudreaux had an idea. He remembered he had some moonshine in the boat with him. He pried the snake's mouth open and put about 8 to 10 drops of moonshine in its mouth. In just a few moments, the snake began to uncoil, and Boudreaux threw him into the water. Boudreaux continued fishing. About 30 minutes later, he felt something rubbing against his leg. As he looked down, much to his surprise, the same snake was back in the boat with him. However, this time, he had 2 frogs in his mouth. That frog liked that moonshine. Listen, Jingle Bells, Marbles, and Boudreaux. There's nothing spiritual about those 3 stories, is there? then why did I include them in this devotion? Because if it brought just one smile across your face, it was spiritual. Remember Proverbs 17:22, a merry heart doeth good like a medicine, but a broken spirit drieth the bones. Sometimes we just need to smile. Sometimes we need to belly laugh. Sometimes we need to not take everything so seriously. I'm afraid that many Christians are dying a spiritual death because they have a terminal case of seriousness. Find you something to smile about today. Lord, would you burn this into our hearts and mind, God, or not to be so serious that we lose the joy of living for you. And I ask this in your name. Amen.